Well, and let's just celebrate together our Hispanic Heritage Month. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month. Woo. I am talking to a powerful, like always, like representing Latina. You have always been that in my life and in the time that you have been working at least. But of course, you were born this way, so that's the point. Keep it saying. But I have always known you as the powerful, Hispanic, Latina, however you want to call it. So I wanted to just touch base with you this Heritage Month and just hear how you're feeling and what you're celebrating this month, but always in your life.
Awesome. Well, first of all, gratitude to you, Vernā, and that means a lot to me that you say those things, because of the respect I have for you, but also because from my perspective, like there's just this huge group of folks who identify in one way, shape, or form as Hispanic or Latina or Latinx or Latina, like just or all the different countries and cultures that make up this huge diaspora of people and so, every year around Hispanic Heritage Month, which is it's a funny month because it's half of one month and half of another
Right?
is okay. So how did this happen on some level that we're together as a community, and what does it mean to be a part of that community here in the United States? So, for me, it's a reflection on myself and the things about the cultures from which I come that I really celebrate and I feel so much a part of. That I think really contribute to the strength of the country in which we live here in the United States. I mean, this is a United States event. This is Hispanic Heritage Month doesn't exist in other countries the same way it does in the United States. So how do we think about it in this cultural context of America? And how does the journey of folks who are of this background happen? It's just so different. So when I think about even my family, and Renee, you know this, like I'm half Mexican American, half Puerto Rican. And I think
Right?
about the journey my parents have had, and they're very different. Like my mother grew up in the Southwest. There were signs that said no dogs or Mexicans allowed. There are those things that happened. My dad's from the island of Puerto Rico, where he was a majority person on the island of Puerto Rico, and then came to the mainland of the United States, where people didn't recognize he was an American. So it's a different kind of thing, and lots of folks who come to the United States have their immigrant journey. So I think about that from my family's perspective, and what does that mean for me here today, and what can I do to contribute to the overall health and elevation of this incredibly diverse group of people here in the United States.
Yeah. Thank you for reminding us of just how diverse, how heterogeneous, or what the heterogeneity of the group, right? Because often they get smushed, and it's great to have this month to celebrate this diaspora, as you mentioned. But it is also important to remember at the exact same time that it's quite diverse, and it actually looks different in different countries, especially here and within this country. So I'm just wondering, what are your hopes for the Latina community, for the Hispanic heritage within our country in
Mm,
particular, and in the work that you do? Because you
sure.
are a CDO of a major company, and so what are your hopes?
Sure. So I'm a hopeful person. And so I just see the incredible power of this incredibly diverse community and the recognition that this is a community that has contributed so much to the fabric of our country already and has so much to contribute. And at the same time, I think those of us who exist in different spaces in the US, I think about corporate space, which is where I work, or government space, or entertainment space where we both worked before. There's so much more opportunity to bring in these folks into the conversation in a different way. I live in California now, and almost half of our population is Hispanic, Latina, Latinx, however you define yourself. But it's less than 5% of the tech sector. It's an incredibly small percentage of the entertainment sector. Where are those barriers that exist to the representation of folk? Not just but because as Americans, as people who treasure fairness and all these different things, we should want to take away barriers. So I think about those things is okay. So when we look at this community or other communities, we really kind of look at the heart of who we are as Americans. How can we remove the barriers to access and really be able to draw the incredible diversity and strength from the community? So for me, I'm a hopeful person. So I see a lot of incredible goodness in the community, so much to contribute, so much strength and culture. And I see opportunity for us to open the doors even wider for this community to contribute overall to all the things that we do here in the United States and globally, in whatever organizations we sit in.
You know what I was wondering is I I know one person or one tiny group doesn't speak for like what the ultimate health of a community is, but is there one person or one I know for me, like I have my ancestors or I have like the people I look up to from the Black community. I wonder if there is a person who just gives you hope when you're looking at them and paying attention to their career or their accomplishments.
Well, I always want to say my mother. I always do
That's
because
okay.
she is a person that is an incredibly strong, very, very intelligent, very successful, very feels very close to the community. I think is an incredible representative. I always look to her as being a person who persevered and maintained who she is while influencing so many different people. And when I look out into the world, I still think Dolores Huerta is amazing. There's a lot of people who are out there trying to do good every single day who really inspire me because they care so deeply, not just for their community, but using their community as a way to speak more generally about the hope of America and the hope of fairness and the hope of equity and justice. And I see Dolores Huerta as one of those people. My mother's certainly one of those people. But I'm inspired by the fact that there are so many people who are committed to creating fairness and equality for people and to recognize that not everyone is in the same place and what can we do together to elevate the whole. So people like my mom still
I
doing.
love that you're talking about your mom, and I love every time you tell me the story of your mom. Just give us just a few morsels of the fabulous mom that is yours.
Well, Renee has met my fabulous mom. And so my fabulous mom, she's an amazing person. She grew up in Mesa, Arizona, Mexican American young woman. And I had a very progressive grandfather who said, go get educated. She was born in 1939. She ended up going to Arizona State, graduated Phi Beta Kappa, went to UCLA to get her PhD in the early 60s in political philosophy. Had 4 kids, ended up being a single mom and went to really be a social worker. She worked with elderly folks and established a community center. And she's 85 years old today. She still volunteers all the time to go and translate for people just so they have access. She goes and volunteers at a community organization where she lives, and she goes and translates for young parents so they can receive access to services. So, she's a person who is, she could have done anything and everything in the world, and she's really chosen to work with folks who need access, and she's still so generously giving of her time at 85. So she's an incredibly inspirational person.
And she raised an incredible, inspirational daughter, and your siblings are also quite successful. And I just love the spirit that she clearly transferred to you. And because you are also quite an advocate for justice and for opportunity and for fairness. One last thing, because people might not know Dolores Huerta, if I hope I pronounced that correctly. If not, please correct me. Tell us a little bit about her as well.
So you're gonna put me on the spot. So Dolores Huerta, she's still alive today. She's been a community organizer, labor organizer. And people here assess our job as you should hear and think about Dolores Huerta in the same breath. So she's probably in her 90s now. Dolores, if you're by any chance watching, I'm really sorry if I get this all wrong. But she's really been a community activist, a community organizer, working with farm workers, working with all sorts of people across the United States, a passionate person who wants access for people to vote, access to services. And she's just been a social justice champion that I've heard about since being alive. It, and I
Yes.
still see her popping up all the time. So it's really cool to see Dolores Huerta, um, being Dolores Huerta in the world. She's just
Yeah.
incredible.
Saying her name. I'm glad you said her name. And your mom's name is
Dolores.
Dolores. Okay. So we have yes, yes. And
Yes.
then
Dolores Hernandez, which is different. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And one last question, which is young folks, right? There's so much that I look forward to with regard to the young people who are really so thoughtful about community and solidarity and justice. Any any one person you're looking at or any movement that you're looking at that you're like, "Damn, way to go, folks."
Oh my goodness. Like, of course, I'm a family person, so I go to my children and I think about my youngest son right now, who's really very seriously looking at indigenous rights and, you know, lots of folks who are of Latino backgrounds, like we have very deep indigenous roots, but because of the genocide of indigenous folks in the Americas, oftentimes we can't trace back. And so when you look at indigenous activists and you look at folks really trying to elevate the understanding of the indigenous population, those folks really inspire me because it's very positive, it's very forward looking, it's very much wanting people to understand history in the context, and then also what does that mean for us today, and how can we learn to take those lessons into the future, to learn from what happened, but also to recognize again kind of what could those cultures teach us. So, through the lens of his discussions with me, I've become much more aware of what it is to be indigenous, to have to be able to trace or not trace your indigenous heritage, not just here in the Americas, but also in Australia and other places. So I really admire and have a lot of respect for the indigenous activists who are reminding us of some of the history that we may lose unless we keep it top of mind.
That's such a great example, Christina, because God, there's so much work we have to do with regard to our own awareness of ancestors that we haven't actually understood or claimed and have been erased. And so to like work on that, to elevate that and to bring them back into the our consciousness. They've obviously been conscious forever, but it's some work in the Americas, as you said, but all over the
Yeah.
world.
And it's
So that's
humbling
powerful.
as a person in my 50s now, I feel very humbled by the amount of things I don't know.
I
So
know,
that's the
me
other thing.
too.
It's like I'm humble. So I also admire younger folks of different generations who remind me of all the things I have to learn. And I don't take it as a negative. I take it as I have a lot of life left to learn. I have a lot of things to learn in this life I have. And so I
Yes.
want to use as much of as I can to keep learning. I'm sure there's something there tomorrow that I'll be like, oh, I don't know that either. I have to go
Yes.
learn about it.
I mean, that's the work, that's the journey, as we always say. And I'm sure that your words are enlightening a bunch of people, even as they listen. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
And
Vernā. It's a pleasure.
happy Hispanic Heritage Month.
Happy Hispanic Heritage Month, everybody.